Hello. I should probably stop opening it like that. But anyways, welcome back to another and probably the final video of my recycling YouTube series. And in this video today, we're going to be talking about what recycling can accomplish. Now, I ask that you again please drop a comment or like below, as it would help with feedback, as this is going to be my last video, and after this I'm going to be posting evidence that hopefully this is making it somewhere. Okay, well, one thing that I want to talk about before we truly get started in this little presentation that I've made is, of course, this chart that we've seen quite a few times in the other videos, which this is the chart from Ellen MacArthur about how plastic is used today in society. And though it may be a few years old, it still could hold some pretty good truths, because there really has been little progress made, especially in the US, over the past couple of years on recycling. So it would be good to go ahead and look at this. So I've circled two things on this chart right here. I've circled the 98% virgin feedstock and the 40% landfilled and the 32% leakage. Now, another word that we can use for leakage in this scenario is like pollution or littering. And so, when we think about recycling and how recycling can help change our world, some things that are definitely very important to think about is where this material comes from and where the material goes. So, as we can see, 72% of the material goes to some not so very kind places, and 98% of that plastic created is brand new plastic made from the Earth's materials itself. So that is 98% stuff that is coming from non-renewable sources. So it's important to think about that, and it's important to note that recycling can actually help with that. As you can see, 2% of it is closed loop recycling. If we can increase our recycling, we can therefore increase that amount slowly more and more to make sure that we're using less and less virgin feedstock or newly produced materials from the earth. And then also, if more plastic is collected for recycling, that is less plastic that's going to end up like landfilled or leaked into the environment. And it's not just plastic, it's any recyclable material. Metal, glass, you name it. It could probably be recycled. Anyways, let's get going with this presentation. Now, I'd like to start off with saying what Tumra has to say about the subject, as we like to go ahead and bring them up in this series. So, one person that we should know about is Steve Randstrand. I don't know if that's how he says his name, so I'm sorry if I mispronounce it, but pretty much Steve is the CEO of Tumra, and he made a TED Talk, which I watched through, and I've pulled out some important things to note from his presentation, and I've told you the times here. So, at around 2:30 in his TED Talk, Steve Randstrand says, "Whenever we have a disease, we immediately try to cure it. But when we notice that our planet is dying, we barely do anything about it. Why?" This is a good question, and I feel as if a good answer to this is either we there's not really much knowledge or widespread importance on the fact that the planet is dying, and also is that people mostly do not know how to help the planet in its current state. So therefore, if we can increase that, we can help to combat the fact that the planet is dying and treat it like a disease. And then also, the recycling department of Tumra intends to help combat the increasing demands of resources by the increasing population. Now, we've talked before in the first video that as population increases, consumerism also rises, and therefore we have to be able to go ahead and make sure our materials can be renewed and turned back into new products. That way we're not taking as many resources from our earth, as it's not unlimited. Now, Randstrand continues at 1020 to tell about how 100 million barrels of oil each year is used to create 1 trillion bottles and cans for drinking each year. Now, with oil, you've heard many a times that it's considered a fossil fuel, but one thing that you might have not known is that oil is actually a main ingredient used in the creation of plastic. And so, we're not only using oil for stuff like gas, but it's also used in our plastic. And you can just look around you and see how much stuff is made with plastic. So, if we can recycle the stuff made out of plastic, then we can lower our consumption of oil from the earth, as it is very limited, and quite frankly, we are using it in surplus. So we have to make sure that we do not run out of it. And now, Tumra believes that a circular economy can provide a world where waste is no longer a concept. We're going to talk about circular economy on the next slide. But before we go on to talking about the circular economy, let's go ahead and look at what Peter Berglund, who I interviewed before, has to tell about some environmental effects.
And we have an issue worldwide with plastic pollution, actually.
Yeah.
If we keep consuming and wasting plastic as we are doing it now, because eventually they tend to end up in our water streams, there will be more plastic in the ocean than by weight by 2050. That is quite a lot of plastic, I can tell you.
It sure is.
Yeah.
The planet is like 80% ocean.
Yeah. So I think we are into something, but we are not the only players, of course. But I think we have our mindset and we have a plan.
Yeah.
The problem with when plastic hits the ocean is that it doesn't go away. It gets granulated into microplastics. And microplastics, they are so small, so you might not even see them. They get almost like nanoparticles. They have found plastic particles that can go through your blood barriers and pass into your brains. They found this in animals now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that is because it comes when you drink it, for instance. They found it in human stools, when you go to because we get it in our digestion systems. Our filtration systems, as we use, isn't effective enough to get these tiny particles away from it. And there is no research that can say if it's good or bad. But if we play with the thought here that plastic is derived from oil, not a lot of people drinks it, right? Or eats it. So we'll just have to see.
Okay. Now, one thing that we should probably talk about here is the circular economy. Now, what we currently have in our society is what's known as a linear economy, and it is where we make products from materials found in the earth, then we use the products, and then dispose of them as waste. Of course, it's called linear because linear pretty much means a line, and a line has an end and a beginning. Now, when we look at a circular economy, which is what we should strive to, it's where our products are made from available resources, the products are used, then the waste is recycled in some way, and finally the materials from recycling is made into new products, creating a loop. So, in comparison to a linear, which goes in one direction, a circular economy is a whole loop that makes sure that things stay in motion forever. Because a circle does not have an end nor a beginning, which is why we should strive to make a circular economy where there is no end to the resources and we're not using them up from the beginning. Now, recycling, which we have been talking about in the series, is only one way the circular economy works, but it is one of the most important parts. If you can see in that diagram in the background, it's from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation again, which you can go to their websites and go ahead and find some good information, especially about the circular economy. And I believe they also might have some stuff on the deposit system, and I know that they have some stuff on recycling plastic, such as that chart that we've been talking about quite a lot. And now, inside of this chart, we have it split between the biological half and the technical half. Now, what I am mostly focusing on in this series is the technical half. If you want to go ahead and learn about the biological half, then you might want to go ahead and start researching that yourself if you are interested. And now, in the technical path, we have a whole bunch of ways that can be used, and as you can see, in a purple circle, we have recycling, which is out there, and is quite important inside of the cycle, I'd say. So, some other parts of a circular economy as well, on the technical side, are remanufacturing and the sharing of resources, which remanufacturing pretty much means you take a product that is either about to break down or is getting rather old, and then you go ahead and put in new parts in it. And the reason why this is good is because you can pretty much prevent an item from breaking down before it gets to the point where it's already broken and you have to replace the entire thing. By doing this, we can go ahead and save on the amount of materials that we are needed in order to create a new product. And by sharing resources, we are talking about more stuff like Ubers and taxis. Pretty much where instead of making a car for every single family, we instead have Ubers or rentable cars where it's a couple of cars that can be rented because your car is sitting in your driveway most of the time if you have one, and it's going to be sitting there most of the time just wasting up space when it can be used to help somebody else get to where they need to be and all of that stuff. So therefore, by making it a public commodity, we can then go ahead and reduce the amount of resources that are directed towards making the products that can just be shared amongst the population. Now, the aims of a circular economy is to eliminate waste and pollution, circulate products and materials, and to regenerate nature. All three, which are very noble causes, in order to help preserve our world for generations to come. That way, everybody can have a little bit of something. Okay. Now, let's go on to talking about some of the main factors that recycling can help. So, one way recycling helps the environment is through helping against pollution. Now, I just pulled a picture from, of course, the internet, but as you can see, that is a real life picture. That stuff can get that bad. It's all green around, and yet the lake is just filled with trash. And you can see all of those plastic containers, plastic, one of the most common things that you can recycle, just scattered amongst the lake and practically destroying the ecosystem, the biodiversity, all of it with it. And now, The more emphasis we as a society put on recycling, the more willing we are to actively recycle, as the consequences of not recycling will be well known. What I'm trying to say here is that if we go ahead and talk more about recycling, if we make recycling more of a common thing known to us, to our generations, to our children, or to our elders, then we can cause perhaps a paradigm shift in our society as recycling becomes part of the normal everyday life. And we are rather driven to recycle, where not recycling could be seen as out of the norm and particularly frowned upon. Of course, it would be sad that if we would have to get to this, because we would want everybody to recycle to their own volition, but it's unfortunate that the world doesn't always work like that, and we have to go ahead and get some motivation behind it. Now, through systems such as the deposit system, people have an incentive to recycle, and if others see it as too much of a hassle, one phrase that I like to put with it is one man's trash is another man's treasure. And what I mean by that is that if one person is unwilling to just go to something like a reverse vending machine and put their bottle in and then get some change out of it from their deposit, then somebody else who would actually see the value in recycling that will just go ahead and pick it up, put it in the machine, and take the money for themselves. Therefore, these incentives will help to make recycling happen even if some people refuse to accept it. And now, recycling also requires the sorting of materials, which makes all trash cleaner per se and more organized. That way, you're not gonna have like a huge wad of garbage that is mixed and matched and most likely bad, but instead you will have stuff that is more accessible to recycling all the time, and therefore you're not gonna have any bad reactions happening. Okay. Now, another thing to talk about is landfills. So, with recycling, there will be less demand for landfills as most of the trash that goes to landfills is recyclable. And landfills often take up a lot of space where nature can prosper or new structures can be built, so more space can help with increasing population over the years, as we have established in earlier videos. And the main reason why landfills exist is to dispose of waste. But if we as a society adopt a circular economy per se, we would not really need to dispose of nearly as much waste as there would be, as there would be less pollution, or less pollution, there would be less products produced, and there would, well, less waste produced, I should say, and there would be more usable products than less products. Sorry, that was a little mistake on my part. Now, one thing that we should also take into account is the fact that we are very much taking from the earth, and we're not really letting it have time to recover from all that we have taken. As that one Ellen MacArthur chart shows, 98% of the plastic used is newly created from Earth's materials. The Earth is not an infinite source of materials, no matter how much we wish it could be. So we must preserve what we have. And this could happen through making sure that the materials that we have already used stay in the cycle for as long as we can. And recycling and other circular economy methods ensure that we as a species will need to take less resources from the earth to make sure we extend our lifespan on the earth for as long as possible, as I'm sure none of us would want to undergo an extinction event as a result of lack of resources. Now, this is especially important when you take into account that resource demand is exponentially rising with each year because population exponentially rises with each year. And it is important that we keep this in mind as it is practically the basis around how everything can go wrong if we do not start recycling. Now, what I want you to make of this. Recycling is a good way to preserve materials as long as we can and to make sure we don't waste any materials. Therefore, it would be better for our society to push towards a more recycling orientated economy, such as a circular economy, in order to keep the world alive for generations to come. And lastly, I have some final remarks about recycling and the recycling industry from Mr. Berglund.
This is just a personal view, but when it comes to job satisfaction, liking what you do, I've been on this company for 21 years. I started as a service technician, and I've done a lot of things within this company, and now I'm a service manager here. One of the things that actually kept me stuck with Humra is that we actually do something good.
Yeah.
Yeah, my daily contribution makes good not only for me. I just don't get salary. I don't stop plastic leaking into the nature, so to speak. You saw the diagram, but I contribute, and it makes me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for me, that is important. And we also want to be an attractive employee, and we want to brand ourselves in this. And we as I told you earlier, the coming generations, finding the bright, inspirational young people coming to our company, helping us doing this, it's a major issue for us. And we want to be a front runner in employer of choice as well. Yeah. So this is important in so many ways for us and for me. Yeah.
Now that we've reached the end, I'd like to very much thank you for tuning in throughout this entire series. It really means a lot to me that you guys would be willing to sit through more than an hour of me talking to you. It must be kind of boring, huh? But I sure hope that this has helped you go ahead and learn more about recycling. Maybe if you haven't had an idea of where you wanted to go with your life as of right now, this might have shed some light as the recycling industry could really use more hands on the job. Now, if you would be so kind to leave a comment or like to go ahead and talk about what you've learned from the series and what you've taken in from the entire thing. Or maybe if you've now found a newfound interest into wanting to go ahead and learn about recycling and the preservation of our materials in order to go ahead and create a more sustainable society, then go ahead and please talk about it in the comments below. And please leave a like if you enjoyed the series. Anyways, I will leave you all to your own devices. So, have a good day, everybody, and I might catch you in the halls around sometime. So, see ya!